Hi, my name is Dougal McLaurin. I'm the reference coordinator at the library at Southeastern. In this video, we're going to talk to you about starting your research, understanding your topic, and planning your paper. Most people think that research begins when you open up a database or search our catalog for a particular search term for whatever topic you're going to write your paper on, but that is not where research begins. And so in this video, we're going to talk about best practices for how to search to start your research for your particular topic. And we're going to talk about choosing your topic, exploring your topic, narrowing it, and planning your research paper. I will note at the very end of this, we're going to talk about planning your research paper, and that is going to be the most important place where you can find more information in detail about what I'm talking about, because I'm going to be saying some things very quickly in order to make this video as short as possible. So at the very end, I'm going to give you a resource that will expound upon that a little bit more. When you're starting the research process, usually it looks something like this. You choose a topic, you explore that topic, you narrow that topic down to a manageable topic, then you plan your research and you find materials for that, and then you write. This diagram shows that there's some sort of linear process here, but that's not always the case, especially if your professor already chooses one. You don't have to choose it, you just explore it. Or you may find that you need to explore it in order to be able to choose a particular topic. And so let's say you're taking Theology 3 here at Southeastern. Theology 3 covers two broad categories of ecclesiology and eschatology, and those may be new categories to you, and so you're going to need to explore those topics, and we'll talk about that in just a second, in order to maybe find the subtopics of house churches and church polity up under ecclesiology, and rapture and second coming up under eschatology, and maybe one of those interests you. Two important factors govern choosing a particular topic, especially when you're in school. The first is, what are the parameters that your professor has set? Maybe he's given you a list of 10 topics, or like I said, he's given you this broad category. So that is an important criteria, is does it fall up under what they want. And then second would be, what interests you. And a lot of people come in and they say, I need to find something. Am I going to be able to find enough information on this? And that can come into play, but most of the time it's what interests you. Whatever you're motivated to write about, that is probably what you're going to research and write about, better than something that you're disinterested in. And so let me encourage you as much as possible to choose, if you have a choice like this, choose something that interests you. All right. Then once you've chosen that topic, you can explore that topic. And so you have introductory textbooks are great places to explore and get a good overview of your topic, encyclopedias or specialized dictionaries. And let me just talk about this for a second. If you're going to research something like, say, Syriac Christianity, then you want to get a good overview of the history. How long is, who are some major what are some major historical events with Christianity? Who are some major Syriac Christians, like St. Ephraim? How are you going to find out all that information, just from a database? And the answer is, you got to access Works. And so we're going to access one of our major databases here, if it'll load. All right, here we go. So Credo reference databases. Notice I've limited it to encyclopedia and dictionaries. If I click on all here, it will actually give you our full list of Oxford Companions to the Bible, etc., etc. But you can also click on Credo reference databases. And so if I click on Credo, it'll take me to Credo, and I've already got my search in there for Syriac Christianity. I click enter and I do a search for that. So whenever you're using Credo as one of our databases, think of it as a scholarly Wikipedia. It also shows up, you'll see in a future video, as a widget in the right hand column of our Go search or our catalog. So I'm going to click on this first item here, this first record here, and so this comes from the Blackwell's Companion to Eastern Christianity. So it's a scholarly resource, and also gives me other articles that might interest me. But you can see I get an introduction to the topic, I get a history of Syriac Christianity here, and then I can go on and so forth. And then one of the important things that most good specialized dictionaries or encyclopedias give us is a further reading or bibliography. And here I find Sebastian Brock, or S. Brock. Sebastian Brock is a major scholar in the area of Syriac Christianity, so it's good for me to It's good for me to know his name. Now when I approach the databases, I have scholars that I can interact with, like Sebastian Brock. I can interact with their works because they're going to be, they're major contributors, so that's going to help me in my, help me find good resources when I search our catalog. Maybe I'm writing on St. Ephraim, and I discover him in this process. So I'm narrowing down from Syriac Christianity as a whole to St. Ephraim, and so that's reading these dictionaries is very helpful. These dictionary articles is very helpful to give us a good overview of the topic, introduce us to schools of thought on a particular subject, and introduce us to major scholars who have contributed to the study of that topic. So now, like I said, we approach the databases a little bit more informed and can find resources that are beneficial. You may spend an afternoon doing that, but that can cut your research time and writing time in half. All right, and then we'll narrow our topic, and the way that we'll narrow our topic is by understanding we have to again explore our topic, and maybe we find a subtopic. So maybe St. Ephraim and his life and theology is just too much. Maybe we just want to focus on the theology and his hymns of paradise rather than all of his works. That's a possibility as well, and so that's going to be our research question. What is St. Ephraim's theology and his hymns on paradise? And so now we've got a narrowed topic, we can switch to planning our topic. And so when you plan your topic, there's more than just, setting deadlines for yourself. That is part of it. But what you want to do when you plan your topic is actually look at the works that you find in your research for, say, St. Ephraim, and use those resources that best answer that question that we developed, which was, what is St. Ephraim's theology in his hymns on paradise, or let's say theology of creation. Let's get even more specific. And I'm going to try and work with those journal articles and books that answer that question. So that immediately removes some of the chaff that I may, like on his life. That may be important, and that in certain portions of that book may play into my research, but reading his entire book on his life may not, especially if I'm pressed for time, though it's a good practice to get into understanding someone's life when you're doing historical characters or people. So anyways, moving on from that, you kind of get the idea. You want to make those resources that actually deal with your topic. It focuses your topic, or focuses on your topic, the focus of your research. Then you're going to use those and form a working thesis or answer for your particular topic. And then you'll move to setting goals and deadlines. And here's the part that I said that was going to be most beneficial to you. If you Google something like Minnesota Assignment Calculator or UCLA Assignment Calculator, those two are helpful assignment calculators. I like them both. I prefer the Minnesota Assignment Calculator just a little bit more than the UCLA one. But if you Google that and click on that link, it should take you to something that looks like this. And what this does for you is it gives you a chance to look at the whole entire research process at one glance. And especially with the UCLA, you can enter in dates and it will calculate those dates for you. Now I like that, but UCLA is not updated there since sometime in the mid 2000s. Minnesota, as you can see, well, maybe you can't, but it says August 3rd right below here. Was the last time it was updated, so they check it pretty regularly. That was today actually for me. So I'm recording this August 3rd, 2015. The thing I like about them is that they give you different options here in the Minnesota Assignment Calculator that you don't get in the UCLA one, which is if you're doing a primary sources research project, say for church history or Baptist history, this may be a better option for you. But for most of your options, the research paper is going to cover most of the type of papers you're going to write here. So you can click view. The bad thing about Minnesota is that you have to be a student to be able to use that service for assigning dates. But the good news is that they actually give you a percent of time you should spend. So if you've got 100 days to do this project, then you've got 8 days that you would spend understanding your topic and selecting and focusing your topic. And then the best thing about it is it actually gives you links to help you through each portion of your research. So I really like that. It walks you through every step, everything you could possibly think through. So reading this stuff in between the days, not just getting the 20%, is very beneficial and helpful to you. And then finally, you'll notice one thing. If we do have 100 days, we've written our first draft here. Then we have 10% and 5%, so 15 days to revise and rewrite and polish and put in final form. So 15 days before your paper's due, if you follow this, you already have your first draft written, which removes a lot of pressure and allows you to really do an A paper or write an A paper. So I highly recommend the Minnesota Assignment Calculator to you. And that leads us to finding our resources once we've made our plan and everything, because there are steps in there for finding and reviewing materials. Once you've done that, then you can begin finding, and we're going to talk about that in the future videos about how to find materials as a distance student. See you then.